Hey, what's going on guys? It's Dan and Tom here from the TableTennisDailyAcademy.com, and in today's video we're going to take a look at pro tips to improve your backhand topspin.
Yeah, that's right. Now the backhand topspin has become such a vital shot in modern table tennis, so that's why we want to focus on it today. Now last year we filmed a masterclass with pro player Liam Pitchford, and he gave us his backhand tips to really help progress this shot.
Yeah, he sure did. Now, before we did this masterclass, my backhand was a real weakness in my game. I made lots of mistakes. It broke down very quickly. So then I ended up pivoting and using my forehand a lot. Now, in today's game of table tennis, you need a strong backhand. And since doing the masterclass, my backhand's improved so much. So I just wanted to try and give you the tips that I learned from Liam in this video to try and improve your backhand.
So let's get stuck into these pro backhand tips.
Okay, pro tip number one, all starts from the elbow. Now this is something that Liam really highlighted and said straight away to my game, Dan, your elbow is not in the right position. When I was doing it before, my elbow was lower and quite close to my body. The problem with this is when you play your stroke, you're going to the side of the ball, you're not putting all the energy forward in the direction where you want it to go. Now if you have the elbow slightly in front, adjacent to your right knee, and use it as a hinge and keep it fixed during the stroke, see how now my forearm and wrist goes fully into the ball, into the direction where I want it to go. Also helps your shots be more compact and safer because there's less breaking down. If your elbow moves, you lose contact and timing. So keeping this elbow out here slightly in front, keeping it fixed during the stroke means you can really utilize your forearm and wrist going into the ball. Okay, so before we take a look at this elbow in action during the backhand topspin, just make sure you got the basics, so good bend of the knees, right foot slightly behind your left, weight forward with your feet slightly wider than shoulder width apart. Now I'm nice and low, my non-playing arm is out in front, adjacent with my playing arm, and we're ready to go. Okay, so with this elbow in this fixed position, I can play in front and keep that consistency. Makes my backhand very safe. I can get a lot of spin whilst keeping behind the ball. Keeping it in this nice solid position allows you to be controlled, consistent, short, compact, and not breaking down too easily.
So let's take a look at what Liam had to say to Dan about this elbow position and the use of the wrist and forearm.
A lot of players do it. They're pushing the ball a little bit. You know, you're trying to make it go on the table.
Like force it.
Yeah, kind of forcing it to go on the table instead of from elbow and wrist and just snapping through.
So almost you're brushing on the ball more.
Yeah. So then you're generating more spin, but you've still got that speed and control in it. So that, you know, pushing the ball forward, kind of from the shoulder. So you're just literally using from your elbow and your wrist.
Yeah. So the key thing with this elbow position is that it allows the forearm and wrist to control the shot, and that makes it a lot more stable. It stops the shoulder getting involved and becoming very long and overextended. So if Dan has this elbow position slightly more in front, the upper arm and shoulder is nice and fixed, and the backhand stroke is then just being played and controlled with the forearm and the wrist. So as Dan said, it keeps it nice and compact, and it makes it much more easy to execute when moving into different positions and having to adapt to different ball placements. So here in slow motion, we can see that the elbow position is really allowing Dan's forearm and wrist to take control of the shot. The shoulder and upper arm is just nice and stable and in that fixed position to allow for a stable stroke, releasing out from the forearm and wrist with that elbow position giving the control.
Now, pro tip number two is the bat angle. Now, Tom, we found this very interesting early on with Liam. Liam talked about if your bat angle's too closed, it's very high risk, it's hard to get good quality spin.
Yeah, that's right. It's really interesting to hear him now talk about how he starts his bat angle slightly more open and then uses the wrist to brush over the ball. So let's see what Liam had to say about the bat angle on the backhand topspin.
Yeah, so a lot of players, you know, when they play a backhand topspin, will actually start with the racket, you know, as close as possible. Whereas I find if I'm like that, I feel a little bit tense in my body. So I like to start with my racket a little bit more open and then flick my wrist over to get over the ball and then finish with the closed racket.
So really interesting there to hear Liam talking about having a slightly more open bat angle. This gives you a lot more safety, a lot more surface area of the rubber to brush over the ball. And then he uses the wrist and forearm to be relaxed and really generate that spin. Again, that links back to tip number 1 with that elbow position, being stable here so we can accelerate through with a nice whipping action and relaxed wrist and forearm. Let's take a look at a comparison between Liam and Dan playing the backhand topspins.
So it's interesting, Tom, because on the left-hand side, this was when I was just learning out the backhand topspin, and you can see how much more tensed I am. You can see how loose Liam is, how, like he talks about, his wrist is actually whipping and brushing into the ball rather than pushing it forward. So Liam is actually generating spin on the ball during contact, and that's what's really key with having the bat angle slightly more open. It really helped me having my bat angle more open, helps against the receiver serves, just helps more safety in getting that good contact. So as you can see here, bat angle is slightly open, and you can really whip and brush the ball and get lots of spin. You see that you can actually hear the sound as well, that brush on the ball. It's not a thick, sharp contact, it's more of a brushing sound.
Yeah, that's right. And what you can see here, if your bat angle is very close, there's only so much you can do here to generate spin. Whereas if your bat angle is more open and your wrist and forearm are activating, there's a lot more ability to actually brush and dwell on the rubber and get that quality on the ball. If your bat's too close, your contact time is actually shorter and it's very hard to actually generate spin. So slightly more open bat angle and brushing over with the forearm and wrist. And this technique that Liam uses really allows him to get a lot of acceleration and whip and quality on his shots. Okay, tip number 3 is the use of the legs and body. Now Liam had some really interesting explanations of how to use the legs and body well with the backhand. He said lots of players tend to really overforce with the arm, the shot gets longer, more tense and out of control. So let's take a look at Liam explaining how to correctly use the legs and body in the backhand topspin.
And if I want to play a bit more speed and power, then I'll turn a little bit more from my body, bring my racket back past my waist and swing into the ball.
So when you go more power, you're actually using the body then?
Yeah, like you would with the forehand, but you know, the other way for the backhand.
Yeah, some really interesting comments there from Liam. Now, I think a lot of players, they really think about the use of the legs and body on the forehand, but not so much on the backhand. Now, the problem with not using the legs and body on the backhand is you end up using just your arm, you get very tense and stiff, you don't have the power to get the ball over the net, especially when you're under pressure in the match. And also where it particularly helps very well is against backspin. So if you're using the legs and body against backspin, it's a lot easier to generate that whipping effect to get the spin on the ball. If you just use the arm, the ball's likely to die into the net. So let's just take a look. If I just use my arm, it's very hard to get the momentum on the ball. So now if I use my legs and body against the backspin, good bend of knees, turn, and I can really easily get that momentum on the ball. And as you saw on the last ball there, because I'm low using the legs and body, the arm doesn't need to be that big of a swing to get good quality on the ball.
That's right, and again this comes back to linking back to that tip number 1, which was the elbow position and the wrist and forearm being relaxed and whipping into it. If you're using your legs and body, then you won't feel the need for this shoulder to come in and add that extra power. You can keep this elbow position correct, slightly higher, like we said earlier, and that allows this open bat angle to come through and whip. And then with the legs and body, all 3 tips are connected. So really important to make use of these low active legs and that rotation from the body, and that will really help you have a more relaxed arm and get that quality of spin on your backhand topspins.
Okay, so using those 3 pro tips there from Liam is really going to help improve your backhand, make it a lot stronger. Now another important area to think about is not dropping the bat during the stroke. Now, a lot of players do this on the backhand topspin. If you drop the bat, you have to come up and over the ball and you lose timing, you can hit top edge. If you keep the bat high on the backswing, it's very easy to recover. And you can see that I'm getting lots of spin still and recover for the next shot. It also helps in playing to the forehand topspin if you get switched in the match. You know, if you're dropping the bat a lot, it's very hard to then recover to the next ball. So another key point to remember.
So there we go, guys. That was our 3 pro tips from Liam Pitchford on how to improve and create a deadly backhand topspin.
Yeah, and I hope those 3 tips can help your backhand. It's really helped me having that elbow slightly higher, having the bat angle slightly more open as well. It allows me to create more spin and more safety in my backhand, which has helped a lot.
Now, if you want to learn more from Liam Pitchford, check out the Liam Pitchford Masterclass on the Academy, where Liam teaches us other areas of the game, like the backhand open-up, flick, return a serve, and much more. The link is in the description below.
Yeah, now guys, if you've got any other tips to improve backhand topspins, let us know in the comments below. But for now, to stay tuned for many more videos on Table Tennis Daily, be sure to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.